I teach a lot on Mondays, so it's like a little. It's like that.
It's a very evocative sound.
How are you?
I'm fine. I lose track of the days of the week. I usually know when it's Wednesday, and that's about it. This week, I know it's Monday because it's the day before the election, which is a Tuesday. So I feel like I'm more aware of the Mondayness today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tomorrow's kind of a big day.
My
By the
God.
way, you might be listening to this. If you're listening to this on the podcast, basically everything we say today is going to be like the
Time
value of
capsule.
it is like a time capsule. It's like a time machine. It's like listen to the naive people talking about
Hmm.
how tired they are on a Monday the day before the election. And if you get this like next Monday or whenever, things are going to be very different. I mean, it's just going to be different. And so you just treasure this little uh, conversation in your heart, and we'll just it'll be like the precious naive people who are in the Garden of Eden, and you can look back on it and smile and laugh and wonder, or you can make fun of us. That's fine too.
I mean, it doesn't feel like Eden at all. So
Well, if now doesn't feel like Eden, next Monday is definitely not going to feel like Eden either.
we really are tempting fate by doing this today.
We are. So
Posterity is
I'm not
not going to
making
be
any
kind
predictions. I don't want
regardless
to
of what
jinx it.
happens.
Say that again.
I said posterity is not going to be kind to us regardless of who wins the election.
This is true.
That's why we're
So
talking. That's why we're talking about self care.
we're talking about self care today. So first
Yeah.
of all, hello if you're joining us out there in interwebs land. Thank you for being here. I want to invite you into the conversation. So if you have things to say, just say them. Say them in the comments, and we'll talk about them on the screen. We were talking about self care today. We haven't done cocktail hours in a good bit. We've taken some time off to let our audio dramas sink in, and they have. We've done like three since we did our last cocktail hours,
Yeah.
so that's been busy. Uh, we've been busy, and we need some self care, quite aside from election day. So Claire, tell us what you've been up to.
Um. Well, this past week, um, we have been recording all of our audio files and fodder for the audio drama that we're doing of Afra Ben's feminist restoration comedy, The Rover. And so this week I've had a lot of FaceTime with the cast. We've been doing the show. We've had got our masquerade masks every night. We put them on. And yeah, we've done the show 4 times in the last week, and it's a good long show. So I feel like I've been spending a lot of time in Naples, albeit through Zoom, which has been really lovely because it's just a wonderful group of people, and in a way it is a bit like self care, just getting to let go of the pressures and expectations of sort of the rest of my life and just be with them in that space of artistic conversation and creation for a couple of hours every night. Um, but I was also house sitting for the entire month of October, so I moved out of the house this past week. So it's been a little chaotic. Last night I took a really long hot bath, and that was my way of that was my way of unwinding from the stress of packing and unpacking, and then moving back. Um, yeah, that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Um, been doing a lot of, it's just a lot of class right now. So for those of you who don't know out there in the universe, my day job actually is a theater professor. I teach at Fayetteville State University, and actually I also teach an adjunct class this semester at Methodist University, just up the street, and they just keep me busy. And we're like 80% of the way through the semester, the
Wow.
point in time where everyone is sort of compressed anyway. We didn't get a fall break, so it's like it's a little like
Mhm.
extra. It's
Mhm.
extra. But you know, the light is starting to appear at the end of the tunnel. We have 2 more weeks left.
Wow.
And hooray for that. I mean, the one benefit to COVID and starting school at an obscene time in August is that we're about done until the end of January, and that's a good thing. So doing that, I played my first D&D game on Thursday night with some Sweet Tea people. That's going to be strange content when that comes out. I'm playing a character who's known as a, I'm going to screw up the pronunciation, but it's like a furbolg. It's a cow-faced anthropomorphic kind of figure. And I'm playing this character, and at the beginning, like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, sometimes you're in the character, and sometimes you're out of the character. And so when you're in it, there's like a voice, and you're speaking dialogue. And when you're outside of it, you're sort of describing narratively what the character is doing, and it's a little bit of a dance you've got to figure out. But it's not unlike acting in improv, okay? But I started the character sort of like reserved, stern, and then like 10% in the way into the evening, I sort of caught the spirit and did something else, and so I think my character sounds a little bit like George W. Bush if he was like a door-to-door preacher.
Oh wow, I have oddly a very easy time imagining that.
So
Okay.
anyway, it ended up being a good bit of fun, and we're doing it like every 2 weeks. So that was like the highlight of my week last week, to be honest with you.
I cannot wait to see that. I know nothing about D&D, and I imagine watching all of you do it will not clear it up for me so much as just give me a window into.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I see the appeal. I mean, some people are super into it. I found it fairly interesting. I would do it again. But it's weird. It's like there's pressure, and it's not always like super pleasant. I'm not a good improv person myself, so it feels like there's like I have to have an answer right now, and I don't have one. Anyway, so we will have that. And what else did I do? I could talk about self-care. Let's talk about self-care. That's why we're here. We have an election tomorrow. Pressure's up. There's a pandemic. The prognostications are mixed at best, I think you could say. About
Are you in a swing state?
I am in a swing state. Kamala Harris was in our city last night. And I tried to go, and they turned me away because I didn't have an RSVP. And do you know who was there turning me away? Kelly Artis. She was checking people in. She didn't actually literally turn me away. One of the people she was working with turned me away. But anyway, I didn't get to go. I saw where Kamala was. Also, I should say, out of deference to both political parties, the president is in town today, in Fayetteville today. So we are a true swing. We're a swing place, and it has been true for the last 2 elections. So around this time, a day or two before the last election, Obama was here. I and my theater colleague Dave Griffey are famously in Time magazine with Barack Obama, and you know it's like a long shot, and he's like midfield, like the camera's like 50 feet, in front of him, and he's like midfield, and he's talking in his way, and Dave and I, and actually Stacy Graybilt, who is a former Sweet Tea person, are like way up in the bleachers, like doing what we do. And so I'm in the frame with Barack Obama.
Was that 08 or was that 12?
That was 16. Like Obama was campaigning for Clinton.
Oh, I was like, what? Okay, I get it now. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and actually, so like it's amazing. I mean, I lived in Iowa for 3 years before I came to Fayetteville, and during the caucuses and the caucuses, everybody, like literally across the street. I have a picture of my eldest child who was then like, I don't know, a bean sprout, being hoisted by one Joe Biden. And actually, I have another picture from taken like 10 days later of same bean sprout with John Edwards. I don't know if you remember John Edwards, but he's sort of faded into obscurity these days. Senator of North Carolina, and one-time presidential candidate before he got himself into a little bit of trouble. Anyway, yeah. I'm a celebrity guy. I like celebrities. I like the appeal. So, you keep distracting me, Claire.
We've got to talk about actually in Fayetteville.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't your town have like 11,000 people?
No. Our town is like 350,000 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's hard to explain. It's really probably 100,000 people in Fayetteville, like who are like the Fayetteville like base.
Yeah.
And then it's surrounded by 200, 210, 250,000 people who are like Bragg.
Mm-hmm.
And then you count like Fayetteville's actually like a metro now. Like we've got satellite communities all over the place, so it's pretty sizable. It's pretty sizable. So, you know.
Wow.
We get like Elton John came here. I mean, we get people.
I guess my not known as the claim to fame. It's certainly something that I'm proud of. I missed the current president by one day. I went to visit the Hudson Strode Renaissance PhD program down at University of Alabama, and it was a game day, which I didn't know when I booked the trip because I didn't think to look into it because I don't follow football. And the game was on a Saturday. I flew in on a Thursday, went to classes on a Friday, and then flew out on Saturday. My plane was the last to fly out before the president flew in. Just missed him by like 8 minutes. Now I probably would not have seen him because he would have been, Stadium Central. That's why he was there to go to the game, and I was hanging out with a bunch of literary props. But it was a bit insane to be in that town, at the school, in preparation mode. Like that was a really just wild experience. I hadn't been on a college campus in 3 years, and I had never been on a college campus that galactically huge in that kind of feverish, the queen is coming state. So I'm from Oregon. Like we've been blue for a while. People don't come here, not as consistently, at least. Because there's just, there's less, I guess the game of risk is a little bit more certain over on this side. Yeah, I can't believe that you've just had all these people like in your sphere.
It's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, I feel like we're the center of the universe at the moment.
You would.
And come Wednesday morning, hopefully we aren't the center of the universe. I mean, there's possibility that we would be if it's like contested or something like that, but I hope we're not. How
do you have to vote on the day?
No, I've already voted. I'm done.
Okay.
In fact, like 53% of Cumberland County voters who are registered have already voted, which is it's a good thing. I mean, from a health perspective, at the very least.
Sure.
It's good.
Yeah.
So, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we do the mail-in ballots. That's always been, as long as I've been voting in Oregon's elections, it's been mail-in. So I vote like weeks in advance. But I remember having friends in college who would, they would have to go wait in the lines.
I'm going to tell you a funny story about voting in advance. This is not a pleasant story. It's a dark story, but it's an interesting one, and I'm going to share it. So I am originally from Missouri, which is, they call it a flyover state. It's not actually a flyover state. There are lovely cities and towns. I grew up there, went to high school there, went to college there, and I think it was in, I'm not going to remember the year, but it was an election year, and of course, because it's an election story. And I can't remember if I must have been in college. So there was a Senate race between John Ashcroft, who was famously Attorney General, is that right?
Yeah,
For
I think
George
so.
W. Bush.
Yeah.
And Mel Carnahan, and they were both former. I think Carnahan was like governor right then, or had just been governor of the state of Missouri, and they were in a hotly contested election. And I had to vote absentee because I was at college and I came back, and I voted absentee. On that night, Mel Carnahan was in a plane crash and died.
What?
It was unreal on that day. So that's the dark part of the story. His wife ended up taking his place, and he was elected. Mel Carnahan was elected to the Senate, and his wife took his spot for temporarily until they had a special election or whatever. I can't remember the details after that, but yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I told you it was dark. It was not a pleasant story, but that's my story. Mm-hmm.
That is like
On the
that
day.
is like that is like when the that is like when the young strapping king dies, and his wife, who's like a French princess, like she's not from the country. Nobody knows her. Nobody like saw her grow up. She's just there. She becomes the regent because their son is like a baby. Like
Yep.
that is like one of those. That is like an Anne of Austria situation. That is insane.
Yep. And I was in. I was not in high school, but it was like upper junior high. I seem to remember, and like for some reason, I lived in a town called Warrenton, Missouri. It's like 45 minutes outside of St. Louis, and for whatever reason, I cannot remember, but I was at a McDonald's right off the interstate. I-70 comes through. McDonald's is right there. I don't know why I was there. Somebody took me there. I wasn't with my parents or family, but like it was with friends or something. We're sitting there, and Mel Carnahan and his wife walked in, and we're like, "Hey, that's Mel Carnahan." And we went and said hello, and that's my other Mel Carnahan story. They just walked in like he was the governor at this point. He just walked in like he had a staff member there, no security or whatever. That wouldn't happen today.
His plane crashed on the day.
On the day I cast the ballot. Yeah. Different day. Not that same day. That was like 5 years earlier or something. His plane crashed on the day I filed the ballot.
That is insane. I cannot believe I've never heard of that. I mean, I guess it's Missouri. I don't know why I would have, but still, that just seems like I have wondered though. I have wondered in the past, like, what happens if a candidate in a hotly contested race like dies like around election time. Like I have wondered like what protocol there is. I know my friend is a third-year law student at Georgetown Law, and this is something we do for self-care. Every week we hop on. We're gonna do it tonight. Every week we hop on and we watch an episode of The West Wing, and we do it as a Netflix party so we can like chat about it in the chat. And she tells me like what's real and what's bogus and like how things would actually go down because she worked for Joe Biden when he was vice president. And so she's been in the White House a lot. And so yeah, we do that every week. And she had told me that the episode where the gentleman takes over because his wife, who was the representative in the House of Representatives, had died, like she's like, that's a real thing, that the spouse will step in temporarily. Which I didn't know. I thought that was just Sorkin making things up, but apparently that's like that there's like precedent for that. But I always wondered what it would be like in a campaign season as opposed to after the person was like sitting in their position. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
So there you go. That's my story. That's the storiest story I got.
Yeah. Wow.
Election wise. Well, until tomorrow, I'm sure there'll be more and very many exciting stories. And I'm sorry out there if we're triggering you. some of us over here are the artists specifically, are a little nervous about elections.
Just a little.
Like, anyway, so we're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about what we do, what maybe Sweet Tea does. I don't know if Sweet Tea does anything, but we could talk about what we could do, and what you can do at home. Tomorrow's a big day, or if you're listening to this in a week, last Tuesday was a big day.
You may still need self-care.
You probably do still need the things. So, Claire, what do you do for self-care?
It's very hard because I'm bad at it, typically. I am an extrovert, so the hardest part, I'm an extrovert who is a theater director. So in the good times, in the ordinary times, I get my energy from being around people, but not just people, really wonderful, like committed, excited artists. And I'm in the room with several of them at once, right? Which totally fuels and feeds my extroversion and keeps me kind of jazzed. And so the hardest part about COVID has been the lack of contact and communication with groups of people on a regular basis, especially those artists. And I've been able to still find ways to commune with them and connect with them over Zoom. I've been spending a lot of time with artists in the course of rehearsing all of these audio dramas and preparing them for distribution. But I like being by myself stresses me out for long periods of time. I do not like being alone with my thoughts. So oddly enough, my version of self-care is typically reaching out. It manifests in like connecting with people. So right now I'm living with my parents. So sometimes I will just come down like after dinner time. They typically watch TV after dinner and just kind of mellow. And I'll just go and sit with them on the couch. And like, if we're watching something cool, we'll just watch it. And if we're watching something kind of stupid, we'll just like talk while it's on in the background. Just because being with people, like it just fuels me and makes me feel more relaxed. Or I'll call someone on the phone. Like I'll text a friend and be like, hey, can we just have like a FaceTime so we can see each other? And I've been doing a lot of like virtual happy hours, like where we get on Zoom and we each have a cocktail and we just kind of chat later in the evening. So I find rejuvenation in talking to friends and family. I also really like baths. I'm a big fan of hot baths. I don't like doing them at any other time but at night. So like it's not like I would do that in the morning. It's always a like right before bed thing because it like relaxes me and like prepares me for sleep. But I really, really like baths. I was just house sitting and their bath was like amazing. So I do that. I also, oddly, I spend a lot of time like listening and watching audio and video clips from the projects that I'm working on. It's kind of work because I use the info that I glean to pass along to Wesley Johnson, our editor. And I'll often give him things like, oh, I really like that this person laughed on this line. Can we incorporate that? Can we layer in this laugh from this track? But it also just brings me joy getting to watch the Zoom recordings back and see the actors playing with each other and just having fun with each other. And so I'll jot down director notes and sort of post-production notes, but I'll also just enjoy, the show. And then for the digital restoration series, I have 8 full scripts that I'm cutting and adapting for certain groups of actors that are sort of I already have picked out. And I know them very well, and I can adapt the characters towards them. And so I sometimes will just like, I'll go into focus mode on Microsoft Word, and I'll just spend like an hour or two just like in a script. No music, no ambient noise, just kind of me and the characters in the world. I'll put headphones in though, so it's like kind of cancels out the sound. And I'll just kind of be with the text and I'll imagine the actors that are going to be playing the roles and I'll be like, oh, I could write this joke for this person because they deliver it really well and that kind of thing. So those are my go-tos. Also, I've been drinking a lot of wine, but I don't know if that is self-care or if that is a negative coping mechanism, but it makes me feel good. So
I hear you there.
What about you?
Well, I hit the gym every day, and that helps. Usually about half an hour on the treadmill, and I am through whatever grief I brought with me.
I run.
So that's a thing. I have bought a sauna membership, and that is a thing too. So those things are helpful.
Yeah.
Um, I think the thing that's helping me most lately is like, so I work from lists as a general rule, and I'm I was telling somebody the other day, the way I work on a list is like whatever order I wrote it down in is the order that I uh, work it, and that's a great like totally mindless way to do things, and it is totally the worst way on the planet in terms of anxiety and stress. And so like I am learning, it's taking a lot of practice, but I'm learning to say like I don't need to do that. That's actually like I have no role in that whatsoever. I can encourage someone else to do it, but that like the time that takes me like 20 minutes at the beginning of the day to like look at my list and cross off tons of things which I'm not wired to do. I sort of think if I have an idea, it ought to come to fruition. But like the process of sort of like editing that and like stacking those things up against priorities is actually pretty useful, and it pays off during the day. And so that's good. Yeah, those things are those are the I suppose the main ones. I also am known to smoke a pipe, and that's kind of it's like meditative in a way.
Sure. Sure.
You know, breath in, breath out.
Uh-huh.
So that's I do that when I can.
Yep.
I used to a lot go to. We have a great cigar and pipe shop in Fayetteville. It's like a barn. It's like enormous. I used to go there a lot and keep like office hours there, but not during the COVID days. So
I will never, ever, ever, ever willingly ingest cigar smoke. So if you ever want to do an office hour when I'm out there, it cannot be in the cigar shop.
That's fair. That's fair. They do have an outdoor.
No, but
patio.
I do run. I think the endorphins that you get from the physical activity are good. They certainly help me stay balanced. I love the idea of a sauna membership. Like that's brilliant. That's I guess taking long hot baths constantly is like the poor beggar's version of that.
Just wrap yourself in trash bags. It's more or less the same experience.
God, no. I'm thinking about that movie Silver Linings Playbook where he goes running like in a garbage bag to lose weight faster, and every time I remember watching that movie and being like, dude, take off the garbage bag, you're gonna hyperventilate. These are the things that cause me stress. Yeah, I do know that like I'm not good at doing self-care consistently, right? It's the kind of thing where I often find that I'm like at a breaking point and I'm like, oh, I should do something that is stress relieving. The only one that is really consistent is running, which I do most every day. Or I go for long walks if I'm not feeling up to running. But I don't yet have like a rhythm, like a consistent rhythm of self-care. And that is, I feel like, the challenge I need to sort of set for myself, is like incorporating other things that are blissful and relaxing or good for me that are instead of just being tools in my toolkit that I can whip out when I'm like at the breaking point, that instead are just like layered into my schedule.
It's hard. It's practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it totally takes practice.
I think the thing that I've settled on in recent months is like if you're not careful, it's easy to confuse dissociation and self-care, because like dissociation's like escape, right? And like you're sort of out of your body and you're just zoning out. That's what Netflix can be if you're not careful with it, or that's what sitting in front of the Xbox playing Madden or whatever. So, like I just say out there in the universe, if you're taking care of yourself, make sure you're using your body like you're in it and not out of it. That's a big difference maker.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say, not that anyone asked for my advice, but all of the research says that there's like a 1-to-1 association with like your personal depression and anxiety, and your use of social media. So maybe compartmentalize it, check in, 15 minutes, check out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, especially during election season, I think
Oh my
it's.
gosh! Actually, Ashanti was telling, like we were looking at our numbers, we're like podcast numbers and website numbers, and she was saying that all of the people who do this for a living, they like numbers go down the week before election and a few days after, because everyone's checking out. Like they're taking their podcasts out of their ears and they're staying off social media. Lots of anxiety there. And all I want to say out to the universe is we don't know how this thing is going to go. Even if your side wins, whichever side you are on, the other half of the country is going to be very unhappy. And, they have options that involve like going out into the street and doing things. And some of those things will be reasonable and some of them will not be reasonable. And all I want to say is the idea that like, anyone sort of wakes up on Wednesday morning and thinks the world is better because we had an election, regardless of the way it goes, I would just encourage you to sort of place your hope in other things. Yeah, that's all. That's a good move. You know.
Yeah.
So. All right, this is our last bit of naivete. Do you have anything else to share before we hang it up for the
I
day?
would like to say that dissociation is a danger. I totally respect that. But also, like, art can be a really wonderful way of uh, it can be a useful escapism. It can be
Oh, sure.
thought-provoking escapism.
Yep.
So as the world moves forward on the other side of this election, if you are finding yourself, wanting to be a part of a fictional world or a fictional society, or go on adventures, through, podcasts or books or movies, that is a very like real human urge. And it's one that I am sort of like clinging to. And so know that like Sweet Tea Shakespeare is here. We will continue to be telling stories in the digital ways that we can in the months ahead. And please come join us, because sometimes, sometimes just stepping inside of another world and looking at characters who are, who are so much like us, and watching them learn and triumph, that can be really moving and important and empowering. So,
and I would just add to that, sometimes it's more real than the real world. Like so much of the real world has conflict that's manufactured. You know what I mean? And in theater, we sort of live on that pretense. And the other thing I would say, to echo you, my friend, is essentially that whatever sort of strife is out there in the universe, you have a couple of choices in terms of how to respond to it. You can destroy things or you can create things. And I think what artists do and what we're trying to do here is to do the latter. So
agreed.
Join us if you want. We'd love it.
Yeah.
As always, you can reach us at Hours, HOURS, at sweetteashakespeare.com. You can listen to all the things we are creating, including a bajillion audio dramas, Zoom productions, and all kinds of other adventures.
Episode 3 of Way of the World dropped today.
It dropped.
Check it out.
You should check it out. It's good. I listened to
Very
it
good.
on the treadmill. So, take part if you wish. We will see you soon. Thanks for being here, and take care of yourselves.
Bye.
Oops. I clicked the wrong button.